So I spent the week in just outside of Atlanta at a church, and I'm not going to name names because it's not a good story, but it's a great church, and all the people I met are incredible. And one of the things I do, I have a friend who runs a audio visual lighting design installation company. So basically for churches who are looking for a permanent solution to their audio-visual lighting needs, we go in and he designs and sells them a system, and then a couple times a year I go out and help him install the system. And so I basically spend most of the week in a scissor lift, about 30 feet in the air, soldering wires and getting dirty, full of insulation. But you see the side of a church that most people don't see. See, they've been working on this project for 3 years, and we come in at the end and we add all the fun stuff that you get to see, the projectors and the lighting and the all the sound equipment, and we make sure that everything's running absolutely perfect. And so they have all this brand new stuff that this church has kind of been waiting on. They've been meeting in a school like us for the last years. They've been getting ready to finish this. And so this is the first week that this church is going to walk into their new church building. And all of them are going to go, oh my gosh, because it looks amazing in there. It really does look good, and it sounds so good in there. We got them a really cool new sound system, and the projection is, the whole thing is really cool, and it's going to look really good. But they didn't see the side of the church that I saw. See, I saw it on the other side of the ceiling tile grid, and it was a mess. One thing you're not supposed to do is anytime you have an outlet in a ceiling tile, in a wall, it's supposed to have a box around it, a metal box or a PVC box, so if something falls on it or a rat or whatever, nothing gets at the hot electrical wires. We call them hot when they have circs. And that ceiling, there's some bunch of stuff that doesn't have a box. And some of the boxes they have aren't fixed to anything, they're just laying in insulation. And you're not supposed to put an outlet on the other, you're not supposed to, where you can plug or unplug stuff on the other side of a ceiling. Like, you're not supposed to run power in a place where there's like a place that could fail where you can't see it. And so that's a lot of that kind of going on there. And as I'm doing this, and I'm like, oh, I'm not, okay, so I like hook up the projector, and I'm like, I'm gonna leave the power very close, but I'm not gonna plug it in. I can't be on the hook for that. So I'm like, you can go do that. And I go up there and plug it in, and I'm like, it makes me a little uncomfortable. Long story short, it's gonna be fine. There's not gonna start a fire, there's not gonna do anything, as long as everything else is fine. But if that roof leaks in just the wrong spot, or if they get, I don't know, a very mean badger to climb up in there, something. There's no badgers in Georgia? Okay, I come from Wisconsin, the badger state. Never seen a badger in Wisconsin either, if I'm being honest. But we don't follow things like electrical code for if everything stays perfect. We follow things like electrical code, so if it gets bad, it doesn't get worse. Last year I was on a job as well, and one of the guys that was with us is a professional rigger, so he hangs really heavy things. And he was there to hang a stage curtain, one of those big ones that's like, they're hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds, and they have to be hung not only level, but very securely. And this church had built a very cool sign out of all wood. It was their church values. It was probably like 12 feet wide by 10 feet tall, made out of layers of wood. And the thing probably weighed 700 pounds. And they were just gonna hang it on a wall. And so Terry, the guy I was with, walks past that and like watches the 9 people like lifting it up, getting ready to put it on. He's like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, we're just hanging the, he's like, no. Because you could probably get it to stay on the wall. It probably wouldn't like pull the wall down, but if you get the right youth retreat and the right kid to kick the ball, or they're having some kind of like scooter race and you get it and he hits it at just the right angle, or an earthquake, You don't do these things for when everything is right. You do it in case something goes wrong and it doesn't go from bad to worse. Because the last thing you want in some kind of emergency is a 700-pound sign of church values to be the first thing falling off the wall. So they contracted him there, and that Saturday morning, he got in there and he went to the beams with threaded rod, and he locked that thing in. He said, the whole thing might fall, but that sign will still be there. And that's the goal, actually. And as I think about our lives, I think a lot of us are prepared for the sunny seasons. We're prepared for you could keep up, this is going really well. You could just keep, do you want? Oh, thank you, Tim. Thank you. We give Tim a round of applause? We do it for, our lives are prepared for sunny seasons. Our lives are prepared for when there are no storms. And we do just fine as long as everything is fine. But oftentimes, I find that little stressors, maybe metaphorical drizzle, is enough to make the foundation in my life start to shake a little bit. And probably it's just me. You're probably way better than that. You probably don't have any issues with little things setting off a crazy temper in you. I don't know. Probably it's just me. Yeah. That's good. So we'll just all learn about me this morning. I want us to have the kind of life that it's not a small storm that sets us off, that even a big storm couldn't set us off. I want us to have a life that has a foundation that goes deep. And Jesus gave us a way to do that right here in Matthew 7:24 through 27. It's anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it. We're going to talk about what that means. You know, we're often blindsided when things don't go right in life. When we get the call that something went wrong, or we get a little sick, or we don't get the respect we wanted at work, or somebody cuts us off in traffic, or we get into a car accident, or maybe something more serious, we get a diagnosis that we weren't pumped about, or whatever. We're just really, really surprised really often, like, oh my gosh. And I think part of it is because the way that we build our lives. We build our lives for convenience. We build our lives to kind of insulate ourselves from issues and hard things. And we do everything we can to make sure that our lives are as easy as possible. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I think it would be weird if you made your life as hard as possible. But when difficulty comes to our lives, we're like, what? Why? Why me? And Jesus has something super interesting in John 16:33. He says this, I've told you all this so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth, you will have many trials and sorrows. You will have many trials and sorrows. So can I just be the guy, and this isn't bad news. I just want to be the guy that lets you know that if you're at a place in your life right now where you have trials or you have sorrows, that it's okay and that it's normal. One of the things that we do is when we hear the word trials, or we hear the word sorrows, or we start to feel like we're going through a season that's difficult, one of the things we do is we turn from our community because we think we're odd out now. Everyone else here has it figured out. No one else here has these issues. No one else has these problems. So I'm going to fix them so I'll fit in. The reality is community is built for times like this. So I want to let you know that if you're going through a storm or a trial or sorrows, if the wind and the waves are beating against your house, community is for times like that. It's normal. It's okay. You're going to make it through, and we're going to be here for you. Second, if it is not that season now, it will be that season someday. And I want to talk about what we can do today to get ready for the season that's coming someday. How can we be ready? We're promised trials. It's inevitable. Why does it blindside us? How can we be ready? I want us to imagine the life that Jesus is talking about in Matthew chapter 7. The life that when storms come and rain beats down and wind and waves, that doesn't flinch, that doesn't move. See, it would be crazy in 2017 for someone to build a house on sand. You guys have all seen a sand castle. Imagine that happening under a house. It does, apparently. It's not going to work out very good. But imagine the other guy's life, not the picture of the house that stands on the foundation that's been poured and is deep enough and it's rock solid so that when a hurricane comes through, the house still stands. Don't think about the house. Think about the life. When a couple years ago, my dad called me on a Thursday, said, hey, I just got out of a checkup. Turns out I have a 98% blockage in the widowmaker, and I got to go in for surgery tomorrow. And so he went the next day, double bypass on the widowmaker, I guess is what they call that thing. And then that Saturday morning, so he's going in on Friday morning. By Saturday morning, he's running circles around them in the ICU, and he's just killing it. Just did awesome. And I was freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh. My grandpa died in his late 50s from a heart attack. My grandma had a heart attack in her 50s. My uncle had a heart attack in his early 60s, and my dad was 62 at the time. And I freaked out. And I watched my dad, with incredible faith, walk through it like a soldier, never flinching, trusting God. He was the one who was strong for the rest of us in that time, when he was the one with this. Is that crazy? It's inspiring to me. And I know you can think of a person in your life who, when they got the call about the crazy thing, the storm that was intense coming to their life, and you were like, how? Just how are you as strong as you feel right now, or as you look right now? I want us to all get a vision for our lives that we're going to be that person. I want us to commit to training for our trials. So if you can write that down. If you're taking notes, this is a good thing to write down. Say, I commit to training for my trials. I say I will train for my trial. There's a pastor named Levi Lusko who I look up to. He pastors a church out in about 97 states now. He started in Idaho, Montana. It's all the same. Same. And he wrote a book. It's called Through the Eyes of a Lion. It's a great book. It's an incredible read. If I were you, I would read it. It talks about his journey through. They lost a daughter when she was very young. It talks about their journey through that and some of the things that he learned. It's incredible. And one of the things that he says in the book, and I'm going to say to you, is to train for your trial. Just prepare for the pain. What does it look like to prepare for the pain? Two things. First, we build deep in fair weather. That's the next thing you can write down if you're taking notes. Build deep in fair weather. I would say learn to trust God when it's a choice. Learn to trust God when it's a choice, because there's going to come a time in your life where we don't get to choose anymore whether or not we're going to trust God. It's our only option. And I would say that learning to trust God when it's your only option isn't the best plan. You want to have a deep foundation and a trust built in God when that moment comes. It's the same reason you don't want to try to figure out what the promise of God is over your life when it's the only thing you have left to grab onto. I want us to train for our trials. I want us to dig deep. I want us to have a foundation. I want us to have a vision for our life that says, I'm strong, and no matter what comes, I can handle it because I'm rooted and grounded in Jesus. I've built my foundation deep enough that there's not a storm, there's not a wind, there's not a wave, there's nothing that's coming to my life that I won't be able to stand through because I'm standing on the rock of Jesus. I think we're kind of soft. I think it doesn't take very much for us to get thrown off, at me specifically. Like, it doesn't take very much to set me off course or to knock me back or to be like, oh my gosh, my life, it's just so stressful. And I think my problem is I'm not rooted deep enough. I mean, I go through stuff just like everybody else goes through stuff. And I think some days, like, this should not hurt like this hurts. This should not feel like this feels. This should not like knock me out like this does. Why is that? And I honestly think we just dig a little bit deeper. If we would do more building of a better foundation in fair weather, storms wouldn't rock us like they do. No one with the strength to stand through the storm was born that way. Nobody was. It's been trained. It's been learned. It's people who stand through storms, people who have the strength in the tough moments. They've learned to trust God. They've learned to know what His Word says. They've learned to walk through that through the years of their life. God will be strong for you, and we need to learn that. But nobody's born that way. You could train for your trial. One of the primary ways we can do this, where we can build deep in fair weather, is to let our Bibles read us. You can let your Bible read you. We often approach the Bible like, I want to know what's in there. I want to learn the words. I want to know the stuff. And I had a conversation even this morning. So often when we read the Bible, we see somebody make a bad decision, or we see somebody do something. We read about the Pharisees, or we read about Jonah running from God, and we're like, Jonah, running from God. Of course he would, but I never would. Let your Bible read you. How much like Jonah are you? It's not like, are you like Jonah? It's how much. How much like the Pharisees are you? We had a conversation this morning about Judas, actually. And we're getting ready, like thinking about the story of Judas, and we're just like, man, this is really sad that he went through this. But I think the point of Judas being in the story is that we can read into his betrayal, our own betrayal. Let the Bible read you. I think if we could see ourselves clearly, we would know what to work on. God has a plan for you. He's got some things. He's like, I would love to work on this in you. It's different for all of us, but it's definitely there. None of us are perfect. No, not even one. And He's ready to help us and to build us and to speak to us. And He wants to do it. We just have to give Him the space to do it. We have to let Him come and speak to our hearts, speak to our lives. Like, God, what can I fix? Where are the leaks? I don't know about you, but I'd rather know where the leak is before it starts to rain. Yeah? Me too. David prays in the Psalms. He says, search me and reveal my hidden faults. I just think that's such a courageous prayer. To go before God and be like, God, I want you to look at me up and down and show me what's wrong. And I think if we prayed that prayer and then responded, I think we do pretty well. I think we do pretty well. The second thing is we build deep in fair weather, and then we embrace the testing. We embrace testing. This is hard. Wind and waves come into your life. It's hard. It's not the message we want to hear. We don't want to hear, like, you didn't come to church to hear, like, I want that God is going to, like, allow things to come to your life that are going to be uncomfortable. But if I didn't tell you, I'd be lying. Because in this life, there will be trials. In this life, there will be sorrow. So as we begin to deal with those things, we embrace them as they're coming, knowing that God will make it good for me still. Yeah? That you can learn a lot about yourself in a light rain. So if when something comes to us, rather than saying, why me? What are you showing me? What am I learning? What can I grow into? How do I get deeper? God, what are you showing me through this? There's nothing like a light rain to show you that your gutters can't handle much more. Gosh, I better fix that. That's going to be a major problem. Light rain gives a little leak. Time to fix that. I want us to believe again in the power of Christ to transform us. We have come to faith, for those of us that have come to faith, and we've counted on God to do an incredible miracle. He's taken us from what the Bible calls enemies. We were enemies of God, rebellious, saying, God, I am going to be my God. We go from there, and he transforms us to friends, sons, daughters, heirs. It's an incredible miracle to do this on the inside of us. But somewhere along the road, we stop believing in his power to transform us. We start to buy the lie that says people don't change. We start to buy the lie that says, I am how I am. I just am an angry person. I just am a passive-aggressive person. I just read my own mail. I don't know. That's just me. You got your own things. You don't believe God would change in you. But I want us to believe again in the power of God to change who we are. God can make you so strong. If you feel weak, God can make you so strong. If you feel trapped in bitterness, trapped in fear, whatever, God can get you free of those things. We don't have to stay the place that we're stuck in, that God can move us from where we are to where he wants us to be. We just have to believe it again. We can't stand where we are, looking at the person we want to be and say, maybe someday I'll get there. God wants to build us trial by trial to the person he wants us to be. So don't be surprised when issues come your way. Trials, sorrow. Embrace the testing. Embrace the trial. Let God build you into something stronger, because soon enough, you'll be strong enough not just for you. I think about my dad through that situation, through that time, and how his strength, I was able to leave him at the hospital after hanging out with him for hours, being like, you know what, he's going to be just fine because of his confidence. I want the kind of life that's strong enough not just for me, but strong enough for my family, strong enough for my friends, strong enough that when I can't hold, when someone else can't hold themselves up, I can. I don't want this just to be about my strength for me. I want when somebody's storm comes to their life, my foundation can help them. God is really strong. He's really good. And in those places where you feel weak, he can be even stronger. This is good preaching. We can bring the band up here. As I finish up, I have one more point, and I want to go back to 1633 in the Gospel of John. He says, I've told you all of this. He's talking about what's going to come to the disciples' lives once he leaves. So the trials and struggles that are coming your way, I've told you all of this so that you may have peace in me. If you go through your Bible and every time there's a so that, you circle it, it's going to be good for you. Anyways, so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth you will have many trials and sorrows, but take heart. Say, but take heart. But have courage. because I have overcome the world. So we train for our trial. We learn to trust God in the everyday because there's coming a moment, there's coming a time in our lives. I hope it never comes to you. But it's not always sunny in life. There's coming a moment where you're going to need a history with God to carry you through. That you're going to need a firm foundation. That you're going to need to be like the wise person who built their house on a rock. And he says, through those storms, through those trials, through those sorrows, have courage. Take heart, because I have overcome the world. The stupid thing about storms, we've had some crazy storms in the last year that we've been here. We had some hurricanes come through. We had a pretty crazy, weird little blizzard thing. And we've had some pretty crazy storms, but you can't get mad at anybody. It's not like you can look at and be like, who started the storm? It just happens. High pressure, low pressure, water evaporates. It all kind of like gets together. There's something about magnets. And all of a sudden, you're in the middle of a storm. And there's nobody to blame. There's nobody to call. There's nobody to fix. There's nothing. You just have to ride out the storm. You cannot control the storm. You cannot look at the storm and calm it. You can't figure it out. It's just out there and it's just happening. You just have to let it happen. Live through it and survive. But Jesus is a different category. Look at this. At the end of the verse, it says, but have courage because I have overcome the world. There's one whom the waves listen to. There's one who the wind listens to, who the storm listens to. There's one who's overcome death, and there's one who has the power over life. So you can decide to put your hope in your own ability. My own ability to work through problems and solutions, and I can fix my marriage, or I can fix this issue, this problem that I have with my family, or I can fix this health issue, or I can fix all these things. You can put your faith in doctors, and I'm not saying don't go to the doctor, but don't put your faith in the doctor. Put your faith in the one who's above all of it, because one has overcome the world. There's one place you get courage from in the middle of your storm. It's not because you know the word. It's not because you have been to church. It's not because you even have friends who have been to church. It's because your faith is in Jesus. All the way back in Matthew 7:24. It says, anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise. It's not in the listening. It's in the doing. Faith and trust and a power and a faith that's deep and a strong and a strength that's on the inside, courage in the face of your storm, isn't in the listening. It's in the doing. See, both dudes heard it. Both dudes heard of the teaching. One followed it, and one didn't. We've heard that we need to grow our relationship with God. And I bet if we all took a half a second here to be like, God, what do I know I should do? What do I know of your word that I'm not doing? We could all answer that. It'd be quick. I could. What do I know that I'm not doing? And it's in that gap between everything we know we should do and everything that we actually do that the grace of God stands. Because I built my house on sand. I was raised in the church. I was a leader in my youth group. And I was going to Bible college, and I heard it all. I built, and I didn't do any the sand. But crazy thing about God is that if you look at my foundation, the one that I built, the house that I built wasn't built on that. But through the grace of God, I have a strong foundation. See, God can take the whole mess of all the things that we know we should do, but we didn't. And we come to him. We say, Jesus, we just need you to fix me. It's his strength. He says, have courage. You can stand because I stood. Because the crazy thing about this is there's no one person on planet Earth who has ever built their life on the rock, except for Jesus. Only one has ever built his house on the rock, and it's the Word himself. Now, I'm not saying keep building your house on sand. Don't hear that. It's in the doing. It's in the living. It's in the day-to-day. It's the training ourselves for our trial. It's the, I believe that the season I'm in is training me for the season I'll be in, that I can grow and I can be better and I can be stronger, not because of me, but because of him. The more connected we are to Jesus, the stronger our foundation will be. Because nobody else has overcome the world. I can't even overcome the cable company. You know what I mean? Because let's be real. Those are tough conversations. Those are courageous conversations when you call the cable company. But he's overcome the world. He's overcome every storm. Last week we heard about how he calmed the storm and he calmed the seas with a word. He's bigger than it. He's higher than it. He's stronger than it. And he's holding you. You guys stand with me?